Good evening and welcome back to Story Time. We've got the Mousehole Cat again tonight. Obviously you've all heard the news today that schools will be shut on Monday, but it will be open for some children, and as soon as we've got clarification what that means we will let you know, but we will hopefully see lots of you in school again tomorrow. Anyway, last night we got to the bit in the Mousehole Cat where the storm cat was in the harbour. So comment down below now and pause the video if you want to tell us your predictions, and pause it and then press press play again rather when you're ready to go, and listen to the rest of the story to see if your prediction is correct. Because the fishermen could not fish, there was no more food. They ate up the few vegetables that were left in their storm-racked gardens. They ate up the salted pilchards that were left in the cellars. Mouser hated vegetables and the pilchards were too salty for her taste. Soon there was nothing left. The cats and their people grew very hungry. Mouser sat by her window staring out at the storm and thought longingly of morgy broth and stargazy pie. Every day the fishermen gathered on the quayside, and sometimes they would try to take a boat out through the Mousehole. But always the great storm cat lay in wait for them, and they were lucky to escape with their lives. Then at last one evening, as old Tom sat with Mouser on his knee, she felt him take a deep sigh. "Mouser, me handsome," he said, for he was a courteous and well-spoken man. "Mouser, me handsome, it will soon be Christmas, and no man can stand by at Christmas and see the children starve. Someone must go fishing, come what may, and I think it must be me. It cannot be the young men, for they have wives and children, and mothers to weep for them if they do not return. But my wife and parents are dead long since, and my children are grown and gone." Mouser purred to tell them that she understood, for it was the same for her. "I shall go out tomorrow, Mouser, me handsome," said the old man, "and I shall not come back without a catch." Mouser purred louder to tell him that she would go with him, for he was only a man, she thought, and the men were like mice in the paws of the great storm cat. How do you think Mouser's feeling? How do you think old Tom's feeling? How would you feel going out in that storm? Besides, she knew that if he did not come back, she would not much care to live in the cottage without him. There would be no one to pour the cream or stoke up the range or rock the rocking chair. There would be no one in all the world who knew just where she liked to be tickled behind her left ear. "Tomorrow night, Mouser, me handsome," he said, "we shall eat morgy broth, baked hakeling, and Launce's fair maid scouse-scad and stargazy pie." Then Mouser purred as if she would burst to tell him that she loved him more than any of these things. The next morning they set out very early, before the others were waking. Before they went, Tom stoked up the old range and damped it down so that it would burn steadily until they returned. Then he hung a lamp in the window so that it would shine out across the harbour and light their way. As they reached the quayside, Mouser looked back through the wind and rain and thought how warm and welcoming the window looked. Soon their little boat was crossing the harbour towards the Mousehole Gap, and the voice of the great storm cat rose all around them like a giant caterwailing. As she listened to his wailing, Mouser felt a sudden, strange sadness for him. How lonely he must be, she thought endlessly, hunting the men-mice in the deeps of darkness and never returning to the rosy glow of a hot range. And her kind heart was moved to comfort him. Many a tomcat had Mouser tamed in her time with the sweetness of her singing. Now she lifted her head and sang like a siren, joining her call with the cry of the great storm cat. And so it was that he was taken off guard as the little boat made its bid for freedom. Soothed by the sweetness of Mouser's serenade, the great storm cat paused in his prowling and pulled back his giant cat's paw for a mere moment. Swiftly the little boat paused through the Mousehole and out into the open sea. Then the storm cat played with them as a cat plays with a mouse. He would let them loose for a little while as they fought their way towards the fishing grounds. Then down would come his giant's cat paw in a flurry of foam and water, but it did not strike to sink them, for that would have spoiled his sport. When they reached the fishing grounds, the sea was so rough that it was hard to put out the nets. "I fancy you must sing again, Mouser, me handsome," said Tom, "for your voice seems to soothe the sea like the sirens of old." So Mouser sang again, longer and louder than she'd ever sung before. Indeed, old Tom was forced to block up his ears so that her siren song would not distract him from the business of fishing. And again the great storm cat paused in his play and sang with her until the nets were safely shot. And here's a picture of the storm cat and the boat with his claws. Maybe you could recreate the picture using some of these colours. Think, how could you make those different shades of blue and green? All day they fished in a seething sea. The waves were so high and the clouds so low they would soon lose sight of the shore. And all the time the great storm cat played with the little boat, striking it and then losing it, but never quite sinking it. And whenever his claws grew too sharp, Mouser would sing to him to soften the edge of his anger. As evening came down, they hauled in the nets. Into the belly of the boat tumbled ling and launces, scad, hake and fair maids. Enough fish for a whole cauldron of morgy broth, enough pilchards for 500 stargazy pies. "Mouser, me Ampson, we're all saved," said old Tom, "if we can but bring this haul home to harbour." But Mouser knew that the great storm cat would strike when he saw them run for the shelter of the mousehole. She knew the game serves only to sharpen the appetite for the feast to follow. It is his meal or mine, thought Mouser as she looked at the floundering fish in the belly of the boat. Blue, green and silver, they glistened in the greyness. It made her mouth water to look at them. Tomorrow night we'll hear whether they get back to harbour. How would you feel knowing that this boat was coming in? How excited would you feel? What would you do with a catch of fish? What types of fish do you know? Maybe you could research some of the fish in our shores, the shores off Cornwall. What can you see this time of year? Have any of you been fishing? And it would be lovely for you to comment below and let us know. That's it for me tonight. Have a good evening, and I look forward to seeing those of you who can come to school tomorrow. See you tomorrow. Bye.